Yo, what is up guys? Now I've tried to make this video many times, but the audio's kept failing on me, so let's hope I got it right this time. Today we're going to talk about new bikes versus old bikes. Now that's a massive generalization, a really broad topic, so to tighten it down a bit, I'm going to talk more about why I bought my 2016 Yamaha R3 in favor of my 1995 Suzuki Bandit GSF250V. There were reasons that did not relate to the age of the bike, so I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to stick strictly to elements that relate to the age of these bikes. Let's get straight to it. Number one, ABS. So these days you can get a cheap, roadworthy, registered bike for around 4 to 5 grand. So cost, it's not an excuse to not have ABS anymore. I understand if the bike, the particular make and model that you're after, doesn't come with ABS. That's a different story. It's exactly what I went through with my lust for a 90s 250cc 4-cylinder screamer. They obviously did not offer ABS on those bikes back in the early 90s. You'll hear lots of people say that, you'll be a better rider if you learn without the aid of ABS, and that's just blatantly false. I still go out and I practice my emergency braking drills without activating ABS, but the point is, it's there if you need it, and you don't need ABS until you do. It's that last line of defense. It's not something that you should entirely rely on, but as a novice, it is probably something you'll end up needing in the case of an emergency. And look, at the very least, it could save you from a low speed drop if you grab too much front brake, save your fairings, or it could save your life someday. And as motorcyclists, we are 30 times more likely to be fatally injured than someone in your typical car, which is why something as significant as ABS is probably something you should definitely go after. So that is one point to new bikes. Pretty much anything after 2012 came with ABS, the Yamaha R3 included. Alright, point number 2. I'm going to talk about the gauge cluster. Now, unlike ABS, this wasn't something I gave two shits about at all when I was looking for a new bike. The Bandit, it had your typical analog clusters for your speedo and your tack. It has a fuel gauge, it has a temperature gauge, and I'll give it that. A fuel gauge back in 95 on a 250cc bike, that's not that common, so good on the Bandit for that. But then I got accustomed to the Yamaha's gauge cluster, which as you can see is a whole different beast. So it's pretty much digital everything, digital speedo, digital trip meter, digital fuel gauge, digital temp gauge, but on top of these things it's got a gear indicator, which is super handy when you're commuting, and it's just kind of nice and easy to get your head around. It's also got your fuel economy, your average fuel usage, and such. It's got an LED shift light. It's even got a clock on it. So initially when I began motorcycling, I was pretty set on the fact I was pretty set on riding purely for recreational purposes. That isn't what ended up happening. Even now, I'm riding for a commute, not just because I want to ride. And out in the hills, the gauge cluster doesn't really make much of a difference at all. But when you're commuting, it's one of those optional extras that you really come to appreciate and can get used to quite quickly, which is what happened with me. So another point for modern bikes. It's a nice looking bike, you know, for an entry-level sports bike. I think this thing looks incredible. So let's practice getting this Krieger on. I just bought this backpack. Let's talk about the next thing. Headlights. So, should probably grab my keys, shouldn't I? The Bandit from back in 1995 had the crappiest headlights. So the Bandit had the shittest headlights you could ever imagine. They were piss weak. I'd have to run them on high beams at all times, and even then they were just useless pretty much. Gave me no confidence whatsoever. And yeah, there was a whole story about that. Basically got me to stop night riding for the duration of my ownership on that bike. But I'll detail that in another video, because I actually recently installed a set of LEDs into this bike. Go watch that video if you haven't already, and the next video I will be talking about those LEDs and whether they're worth it or not. So anyway, the stock headlights on these, incredible compared to that of the Bandits. But the unfortunate thing is, it's still a motorcycle, and the light output still wasn't sufficient. You know, you want 6 seconds of sight distance at all times, and at 100k an hour at night on the M1, for those of you who are local will know there are some very poorly lit areas on that stretch of freeway. It's just not attainable even on stock headlights, even on the LEDs, but we'll talk about that later. Fact of the matter is, the headlights on these, so much better. And so much better for night riding. And there you have it. So the new bike wins in that category too, without a doubt. And obviously headlights are extremely important for your night riding, which is again another reason as to why I bought the R3 and got rid of the Bandit. I'm going to talk about the final category. And to be honest, this category does hold a lot of weight, especially to me. Keep in mind, everything I've said and everything I'm going to say is purely subjective. You're just listening to me ramble on about my opinion here. So when you drive a new car or a motorcycle and then go back to an old one, you'll notice a very distinct difference, even if the two bikes or vehicles are from the same category. You know, for example, a sports bike from the 80s versus a sports bike now. Same goes for cars. Yeah, I'm getting tailgated. Fuck me. So this difference is universal, and it's probably a result of all the safety restrictions and standards of today, which aren't bad at all. You know, I think it's great they exist, and you are a lot less likely to die than back in the day. But the issue is, you lose that. You really do lose that. Oh, this truck though. You lose that sense of connection you have with the road. Older cars give us that feeling that I'm gonna call spirit. They have spirit. They feel raw, and you feel a lot more connected to the road, a lot more connected to your drive. And unfortunately, it's something a lot of modern vehicles lack. Even the sports cars of today that try and replicate that feeling, they just can't do it as well as the vehicles of the early 2000s and prior. The funny thing is, this is just a roundabout way of saying the less safety features a car or a vehicle has, the funner it is. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of true for myself and many other people out there. And for the sake of dressing it up nicely, I'm going to call that spirit. It's something a lot of new cars and motorcycles just do not have. Now, I know for a fact the R3 is a well-poised, fantastic, agile, entry-level sports bike, but it doesn't give me the same feeling I got from the Bandit 250, especially up in the hills. It offers a completely different experience to what a screaming inline-4 carbureted Bandit of back in the day does. And there's nothing inherently wrong with it. They both have their pros and cons to them, but there's no denying one day I want to own the most advanced, cutting-edge, innovative motorcycle, the hypersports, super sports machine of the era, and I also want an early 90s carbureted, raw, spirited machine from back in the day. No matter how refined, how technologically advanced and developed a new modern bike is, it'll never offer the same experience that a screaming carbureted machine from back in the day does, and vice versa. No matter how fun, how spirited an older machine is, it's never going to offer the cutting edge refinements provided to us by the advancements of science and technology. There you go, guys. That's my opinion on the whole topic. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate all the support. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will catch you on the next one.
You say you've got them guns, but I've never seen you bang. You say you've got them drugs, but I've never seen you slang.